We have a fantastic panel coming up next. Please join me in welcoming George Degri from BitNinja. He's the CEO of BitNinja. Igor Selevsky, founder and CEO of Cloud Linux. And Rob Seeger, the CTO at Monarchs. Come on up, gentlemen. Excellent. Well, we've got a lot that we can cover and a lot of places we can take this. So our theme is security. George, let's start with you. So you began in the hosting industry quite back when you were in university. What got you into it?
Yeah, well,
Check the mic over on George.
yeah. So when I'm
Give him just a moment.
some glitches. Yeah, I think it's better now.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, you can hear me. All right. So yeah, I'm starting my first business at the university, and my intention was to start a regular website building business, a small business to experience how to build up an internet-based venture.
Yep.
And I realized that graphic design is not for me. But
Why was it not for you?
yeah, I tried to build a couple of designs, but me myself understood that all right, this is not the level that is good for the market and for my clients. But I had a couple of clients, and at that time the hosting industry in Hungary and I guess in the world was less mature. All the shared hosting providers were very expensive and low quality. So I decided to create a hosting business from this company. And actually, I always rather enjoyed to build up the backend system.
Yeah.
And go for the code and the lower level programming. So that's why I've started it.
You like that? You sort of like that back end system side of things.
Yeah. So, for example, we've built our own control panel system because that time the currently major providers were not that accessible in the market and feature-wise as well. So that's how the whole story began.
Awesome.
In like 2002-ish. Yeah.
Excellent. Igor, you started Cloud Linux, I believe it was back in 2009.
Yeah.
On that. What inspired you? Like why'd you do that?
My story is somewhat similar. I also started in college, but I have significantly more hair. So my first foray into hosting was in '97, because web was just starting, and hosting was all command line, and no one knew how to do that. So one of the first web-based file manager, one of the first control panels. I did it back in '97. I started my first company. Some of you, probably no one here heard it, Bsoft. So it was me. I sold it. I spent some time with another company, but then it was time for something new, and I wanted to get back to the hosting industry. For me, it's still not cloud industry. It's not service provider industry. For me, it's still hosting industry.
I like it. Rob, you had an interesting background. You started out at the NSA.
Did?
And you've been involved in a number of startups since then.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the NSA in the States is the National Security Administration Agency.
Agency, yeah.
Yes. So you've had this security thread throughout your background. What drew you to security to begin with?
I really enjoy the back and forth nature of it. In security, you're always working against somebody, whether you're on the offensive or the defensive, and it makes it a lot more exciting, at least to me, than other types of technology. You know, when you've got a human on the other side, it's challenging. It's always challenging.
I like that. You like that. You're drawn to the tension of it. George, for you, when did security first come into the picture? You had the hosting company. When did you start caring about security?
Yeah, so later on, like in 2010, we've been one of the major web hosting companies in Hungary. And we started to get more and more problems with hacked websites, those phishing, spam, and so on. And it caused a lot of churn, actually.
Yep.
Because your first reaction for a hacked website is, all right, I give you the hosting account and you can do whatever you want to do. But of course, the customers are small mom and pop shops, and they know nothing about WordPress programming, security. And the reaction is that, all right, I don't know how to secure a website. I don't know what an exploitation means or what vulnerabilities I might have. So I just either cancel the account, so it causes us churn, or move it to a different provider with the promise of better security. But of course, at that time, every hosting company suffered from the same problem. And there were not too many solutions on the market, like most of these security tools were either open source point solutions like Fail2Ban or a couple free malware scanners with horrible experience, or enterprise level security like hardware level firewalls and things like this. So that's why I started BitNinja as an internal development to help my hosting company from this situation where customer churn because of.
So your interest in it was really driven from, you were just seeing the problems in the customer base, that you were seeing it firsthand. Igor, what about you? When did security first come on your radar? Like, when did you start? Was it there from the beginning? Did it come later? When?
It sounds like every time you will ask me a question, I'll answer, well, back in the university.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, back in the university, anytime I'm a programmer by trade, so anytime you program, for me, it's always, how do you make it secure? I don't know why, but that's how I looked at it. Of course, once again, my first file manager, it was installed like on 2,000 servers, which was, back then, it was huge. So about 70% of them got hacked with root access due to buffer overflow, which was very rude wake-up call for me, even though I knew about security and I liked the security and I understood security, yet it was the first time where I had faced someone abusing it. Very easy to solve, obviously, but it was an interesting problem that elevated for me the whole idea. How do we do it secure? How do we constantly be vigilant about being secure with what we develop? Doing security software is a different story.
So Rob, that you alluded to the people behind, right? There's that vigilance aspect, which I think is often easy to miss, right? Where it's like, oh, it's just machines. Like, no, there's people doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So for you've always had that security thread in your career, and you've now had multiple startups. You just raised a round with Monarchs. Congratulations on that.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So we know security's been there. What has drawn you to the startup world?
That was kind of a reaction, actually, against the bureaucracy in the federal
I was curious
government.
about that. Yeah.
You have this imagination that anything goes. I can do anything I want. Oh, that's great. It's not. It's really, really horrible. And so I stifled under that and basically just found a couple other people who were as well. Like, we could do this better. We know how to do this. And so we completely went the other way. I mean, just night and day difference.
So quick follow-up on that. Is there anything that you miss about the more, like, because there's benefits and trade-offs to every approach, right?
Always.
So in the startup world, is there anything you miss about the more like government-centric big business bureaucracy?
So probably the 5 most impactful things I've ever done were in the NSA.
Interesting.
I had just months and months and months of horrific bureaucracy and horrible. And then 5 times I really affected the world. And that was cool. As a startup, you have an impact, you have an effect, but it's a lot more isolated. It's a lot more focused on something.
Yeah.
I wish I could give you an example, but some of the things that I did were, they had real world impact.
And I think whether we're conscious of it or not, I think that's probably part of what attracts many of us to WordPress, is just the size and the scale, the potential for impact.
Quantity of people that
Yeah.
you can affect. And in the case of, positive security, you can help protect them. You can
I
kind
love
of
that.
level up the safety of the entire internet.
So, George, you started BitNinja, and it came out of this frustration that you were seeing, some of the challenges with your own customers in the hosting space. That led to start BitNinja. And what year was that? Was that back in like
2015.
2015 or so? So you've been at this for a bit. Have you noticed in your experience anything that's changed about the nature of the challenges?
Yeah, so what I see recently changing in the hosting industry is three major trends.
Okay.
One is that slowly but steadily the DevOps revolution is coming for the hosting industry as well. So if you visited last year Cloudfest, then there were a couple newcomers at the control panel industry,
Yep.
and all of them were based on Kubernetes or Docker. So a new scalable cloud-based offering that is coming. And in last year in Singapore, cPanel has announced their new product line, cPanel for Cloud,
Yep.
that is built on Kubernetes as well. So that's one challenge that is coming into this industry, and we are getting ready for it. We also releasing a version with BitNinja that is capable of filtering the traffic and doing the malware scanning as well on a Kubernetes workload. The other one is shared hosting and small VPS prices are falling down.
Yep.
So
Costs are
very
going
cheap small VPSs are on the market, and it is competing with the prices of shared hosting. So there's a migration from traditional hosting to these more free or more freestyle kind of hosting. So we are getting ready for this migration as
Do you think,
well.
does that migration increase the security risks?
Absolutely, because then the liability to secure the server itself
It's on
is
the
on
end
the
user,
on the
yeah.
on the client. So from this point, you need to know more and learn more about how to secure the whole box.
Yeah, because on the one hand, people are becoming more empowered.
Yeah.
It's become more accessible, but it also means there's more responsibility on their side.
Absolutely. And that's why we announce a free tier for very small VPSs, to help small clients and people to get ready for this security exposure. And the third one that is a new hype is AI. Well, the large language models are here from last year, like November. And this is not only changes the way how content is created, how you manage knowledge inside your company, but also has a security part, because you can also abuse these APIs to generate spam, phishing content, new malwares, and so on. So this is also a two-edged sword.
Igor, so you have the benefit of a really wide surface here. You get to you work with millions and millions of WordPress sites across lots of different hosting companies. What are some of the trends that you've noticed when it comes to security?
Yes, so I mean, I think testament to what our company Solvas did, we now have polymorphic malware. So if before all the malware, it was obfuscated, but they would have one version of obfuscated malware. Today, they actually produce polymorphic malware so that each of you will get your own personalized copy of malware.
Yay.
So yeah, I mean, Windows had it for 15 years, but 3 years ago, it didn't happen. Today, we're getting polymorphic malware.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, everyone. Yes, that's great for us. Second of all, what we're seeing is that majority of infections that you are getting, you are not getting them through vulnerabilities. Like you remember, like previous speaker, very good speech, by the way, excellent speech, but majority of malware today are not coming through those CVEs and through the malicious things. Like sometimes you'll get the plugin and you'll get bunch of it if you don't have security software. But honestly, you get security software, you will not get that infection. Doesn't matter who you choose. The majority of malware you're getting today is because your customers are not using multi-factor authentication.
Yep.
So either the hackers have password to your WordPress, well, to their to WordPress account, or to your control panel. Either one, but that's how malware gets in, significantly more so than through vulnerabilities, through exploits, etc. So that's number two that we have seen. The third one that we have seen that crypto miners disappeared. So crypto miners are gone for the last at least 6 months. It's been kind of a problem 2 years ago, a year ago, and then they're gone. So not an issue.
crashed.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to understand, but it's kind of interesting that you try to prepare for it. You're doing all the software to detect and to clean up and to do all that stuff, but you don't have to anymore because it's not there anymore. Everything else is kind of the same. Spam is the same. Database infection levels are the same. But those three were kind of interesting.
Igor, I'm curious, just a quick follow-up on the two-factor. Are you seeing, that's always seemed like an area of quite a bit of friction. People are like, oh, I don't want to take these extra steps, et cetera. Are you seeing that, is that getting better? Is it about the same? Are more people becoming comfortable with adopting it?
So when we talk about multi-factor, it doesn't mean a token. So you need just something that acts as a second factor, and it can be like, for example, you're buying quite often, they will not send you SMS. They know it's you because you're going from the same machine again, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So there is multiple ways how to implement and how to make it easier. Of course, tokens are the best way by far. Like they will stop whatever it is, no matter how sophisticated it is. But the way it is today in WordPress, the way it is today in pretty much all control panels by default is terrible. And hackers have like huge, absolutely huge lists of already cracked accounts. And once a month, they just go through them from absolutely insane number of IPs and just inject the malware. And what we are doing, we're just resetting password for those users. Like we detect that, okay, that malware came in through someone logging in into WordPress and installing cracked theme, or logging into cPanel and uploading the file, a malicious file. We just go in and automatically reset their password and tell customer to. Basically, that's it. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing. We're not even sure it's brute force. We are not seeing as much brute force on our side.
Yep.
So maybe there is key loggers. Maybe something else is at force, but not all of those passwords are collected by brute forcing accounts.
So Rob, it's all this seems like it's probably pretty interesting to you. Like there's all the different ways that things are happening. You've had this really wide range of experience, and where the stakes have been very different, right? There's things you can't tell us that you worked on, things that you could tell us now. What are some of the lessons that have stood out to you when it comes to like dealing with security and the fact that there are people with malicious intent on the other side?
I guess the thing that's always stood out is essentially you lose.
Okay.
You always fail in security, whether you're the attacker or the defender. Now, the defender fails a lot more often, but it's another human being.
Huh.
You get something together and you're like, oh yeah, this really works. This detects this piece of malware. Oh, this protects from that. This is amazing. And the attacker is not just going to sit there and be like, oh,
I give up.
they beat me. They innovate. They make the next thing. And, hopefully what you've created is robust. And, oh, yeah, you get the next thing. They innovate. They keep innovating, and they'll never stop.
Yeah, we
And
forget
so-
about innovation sometimes. It's multi-sided, right? It's like it's not just a positive thing.
And I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think there's actually been quite an uptick in innovation over the past year or so.
That's scary.
I mean, we hate malware. Malware is huge, but it's actually been impressive how much additional intelligence, effort, etc., has been put behind malware this past year.
So you always lose. Igor, you want something,
Yeah, I
please?
actually want to follow up. I mean, I guess it is true when you're working on national level, but if you look at the security industry for hosting providers, we don't need to be infinitely better. We just need to make it expensive enough for hackers so that they cannot make a profit. So it's not like they always win. We just need to make it expensive for them so that they go to somewhere else to make their money.
What do you think about that, Rob?
To some extent, I certainly agree. I think especially when there's such a large market, there's so many opportunities for an attacker.
You can just move on to something else.
Yeah, exactly. You can bounce over here.
It's the strategy of making yourself unattractive.
Exactly. In an ideal world, everyone would have security, and then you're just you're playing the game. But yeah, I definitely making things more expensive so an attacker hits an easier target. But I completely agree with Igor about the logins. And at that point, how difficult is it?
Yeah.
You log into this site, you drop an admin user, or whatever it is you want to do, and so you end up as a.
I think that's the point a lot of people miss too. It's like they're assuming a higher level of sophistication when if your user just has a really poor password that they've reused, which is fairly common, there's no high sophistication needed. They can just log in and do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's
So-
very difficult to protect someone from that, especially when the people don't understand what's going on, or they think they have a secure password.
Yes.
Oh, this is the coolest thing in the world. My password's amazing.
But you used it again somewhere else and that was compromised or whatever the case might be.
If you're a human and you think it's cool, somebody else has it. Like, that's just what it is. The password's almost certainly compromised.
So you have this idea of you always lose. Any other lessons that have stood out that from your experience?
Just in terms of security,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Sometimes as a security person, you assume that everybody knows security. Everybody understands how important it is. Just people get it. And the reality of the matter is the vast majority of users, they don't. They don't understand it. They don't care about it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to act on it until they get popped, until they get hit. And it's all of a sudden it's affecting them. And they're coming from a place of complete ignorance and fear, and just my whole world fell apart. And I wish I had a good idea about how to get people more interested in security so that they'd learn preemptively, kind of up-level things.
The education thing. So George, we were talking before and you brought up this idea that I liked of like a philosophy of like a guardian shield. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, so I think as far as we find malwares on the servers, we are not doing a good enough job. Because if the malware scanner can find malwares, it's a clear sign that the attackers have read and write access to the accounts. So you need to be more preventive and have security measures in upper layers. I mean, prevent the attackers from being able to read and write those files, and that's another tool set, and that's why I think the multi-layered security approach is the go-to solution, and by sharing this security information with each other, we can create a defensive shield for each the servers that we try to protect.
Igor, you again, you have the benefit of seeing just what a lot of your customers are doing and what they're doing for their customers. What do you think about this education piece? Like, so you see that if more users would like use multi-factor, it's a big thing. What can people do to help educate their users?
So once again, we disagree. It's kind of interesting. I think that someone is beyond the person who thinks that like who doesn't care about security. There is one more person who is even more dangerous. Someone thinks that they know about security because they actually kind of like, oh, I know how to secure my WordPress. That was, I mean, it was interesting. I had a person from Scotland talking to us like, why are you pitching me Munify 360? Because like I can secure my website much better than your software can. And no, they can't. There is 0 days. There is so many attacks that they simply cannot. There is no way they can defend. But the person thinks that they know about security. So I think education is important. I mean, I don't disagree. I agree. Education is important, but I think people have to understand that it is impossible to prevent attacks. All you can do is take measures, and there is multiple things that you can do. And password security, security software, as sad as it is, it's a must. It's no longer an optional thing.
Excellent. All right, we're going to start wrapping up here. Rob, when you think, from your vantage point, what you've seen, when you think about the hosting industry, and especially with WordPress, what would you like to see more of? What guidance would you have to offer for people who are like, okay, yeah, I should care more about security?
I think the guidance I would want is, I tend to agree with you again, Igor. People think sometimes that they understand security.
Yeah.
Some people don't know about security. I think kind of both of them is an education problem, and I think the community just getting out and talking about it and making it a little bit more well known that you need help and that's okay.
Does it need to be driven by fear, or is there a different way?
I wish I could say no, but fear is the thing that motivates humans. It
is a form of motivation, yeah.
Well, if you look at it, the stick is actually 2 times more effective at motivating people. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying this is humans.
Yeah.
And so if there's a great positive way, let's get everybody excited, let's do this, I'm all for it.
So, and that's an interesting tension just to touch on for a moment, because with WordPress, we've seen that WordPress core, it was great. We've seen multiple references to the core. It's quite secure as time, and there's always things that can be better.
As long as you patch.
What's that?
As long as you patch.
Yes, as long as you keep doing that. But how do you navigate that tension of like, we don't want to scare people and say, like, if we're like, oh, there's all these risks, which is true, then it's like, people are like, well, I'm just going to go to a proprietary platform where there's also risks as well.
I like WordPress, but WordPress or not WordPress is just different things. You know what I mean? Like the security is the same. The education, I think it would be really cool if it came from WordPress. WordPress is a huge leader in the market. They're really defining and moving the hosting in general. So if they were doing that with security as well, that'd be amazing.
It'd be interesting to think about it from like an ownership perspective rather than just a fear. Because like, how do we just take care of the stuff that we've got? Well, that's interesting. Let's think about. George, what about you? What would you like to see more of in the space? What guidance would you have for hosts who are thinking about security?
Yeah, well, I think what we were last time talking about, the idea of banning plugins that are not secure enough or have vulnerabilities without patching might work. But the thing is, it's like the e-car ecosystem. So you need like 20 years pass until all the old cars will go out, that's the same with websites, because there's a huge amount of websites out there powered by WordPress, and if you would instantly make all the new ones absolutely secure, still we should wait at least like 15 years for the old ones to get out of from the internet.
That entails a challenge.
So that's why I think implementing a multi-layered security system for WordPress hosters is now a must-have and not an option.
Excellent. Igor, you get the last word. What guidance would you have to offer on this topic of security for hosts?
So look at it as risks, as any other risk. So calculate how much do you think it's gonna cost you. If account gets hacked, if your servers get hacked, try to figure out how much, what are the chances of this happening, and by how much you can decrease it, at what price. It's the same business decision as any other. It's all money involved, nothing else. There is no point of being fearful. There is a point to be prepared.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.